Hi, my name is Dale Zelk. I'm with the R.L. Detman Company. We are the manufacturer's representative in the state of Michigan and Northern Ohio for Bell & Gossett, a Xylem brand. B&G engineered their VSX double suction pump for easy service. Today we are going to show you how easy it is to inspect and replace the bearings in the VSX double suction pump. The service is the same regardless of which configuration you have in your system. Before you start in service or maintenance, make sure you read the IOM instructions thoroughly. This short video is not intended to replace the complete instructions and safety tips shown in the IOM. Now let me introduce you to Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Starkey. I work in the startup and warranty department at the R.L. Detman Company. Today we're going to show you how to remove a seal and a bearing on a VSX pump. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that your pump is isolated, drained, your electrical is locked out, tagged out for procedures. After that's all done, the pump's drained, you can go ahead and remove your OSHA cover guards. You have 3 of them on each side of the pump. All they do is clip it, sort of squeeze them, and pull them out, and they're easy to remove. Second of all, you're going to remove the 4 bolts from here, and then the 4 bolts from here, and this is going to remove the actual bearing cover cap. You remove your 4 bolts from your bearing housing, and then where it clips onto your pump housing, you have jacking bolts on each side. You can take the actual bolts that you take out of here, put into here. You can screw this in and jack this out. Obviously, this is a brand new pump. We don't need to jack this out, so this should come right off. Like so. Then you can remove your jacking bolts. Now you have your bearing and your back plate for your bearing. After you remove your bearing housing, try to remove most of your excess grease. You have a bearing lock nut, and then you have like a spider washer behind it. This washer actually, when your nut's locked on, you're going to take one of these spiders and it's actually bent into one of these tabs. As you can see, this one's not, this one's not. This one down below here was the one that was bent in that locked it. So you would actually take a small screwdriver, get behind that tab, tap that tab out, and bend that down. And that way you'll be able to remove that locking nut. Just take a punch. You can get into either one of these grooves. Knock that nut loose. Then you can go ahead and remove the nut. And you can remove your spider washer. When you put it back together, when it comes apart, it actually has a little notch underneath here, as you can see, and they got a notch on the shaft, so when you put this back in, those line up, and that's what locks that into there. So you can't put it on in the wrong spot. It has to go back the same way. And next you'll be getting a bearing puller, and we'll actually be pulling the bearing off. These bearings are heated and put on, so they have to be pulled off with a bearing puller. Okay, when you put your bearing puller on your bearing, depending on what type of puller and how much room you have, between your bearing and your back plate on your bearing, you only have like a 1/4 inch room. If you can't get your puller in there to get it started or get a good grip, behind here is a rubber slinger that's about a 1/4 inch thick. You can go ahead and cut that slinger, remove that. All you need is a razor blade, or sometimes you can just grab it with needle nose and it'll come. Go ahead and remove your clip. Clip comes off, and your back plate from your bearing housing comes off. This actually has a lip seal in it. If this lip seal is damaged, you want to replace that. What this does is it backs up against the back of your bearing and actually holds the grease in. So all that is just a rubber lip seal. If it has to be replaced, you can go ahead and knock this out and you just can go ahead and put a new one back in there, just press back in. There's a slinger I was talking about. We didn't have to remove it on this one, but if you did, like I said, it's rubber. You could cut it and remove it, and it would give you that extra room. This one we didn't have to do, so your slinger can come off. Next, you're going to remove your seal cartridge, which are going to be these 4 bolts are going to have to be removed. And then you actually have 2 set screws, one on each side. These set screws actually hold your sleeve to the shaft of the pump. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. Okay, I've loosened the 4 bolts. I'm removing those. I've loosened these set screws on each side of the shaft. You got one here and one here. Those have been loosened. Just take them back a couple, 3 turns. You can leave them in there. They don't have to come all the way out. Now your whole cartridge will actually come out. So here's your seal and your cartridge. And way back in here, as you can see, it's not an O-ring, it's called a quad ring. It's a little rubber ring that it's like square instead of an actual O-ring, and that actually seals the inside of this shaft sleeve to the shaft of the pump. If this is ever on like this, and if you see water leaking out of here, your seal's not leaking, your quad ring would be leaking. If you see water coming out of here, then you actually would have a seal leak. And you also have a gasket that sits on here, actually would go on here when you put it back together, that goes on the face of your actual pump. So now that you have everything removed from the pump, you can inspect. You'll probably want to make sure you have a new gasket. You're going to want a new quad ring. You want to have a new slinger, a new bearing. Your actual seal will come as one kit. You'll want to make sure you get the new lip seal and the bearing. All these parts can be purchased through the R.L. Detman company. I would have all of them on hand when you're going to go ahead and do this. You'll actually need 2 sets, one for each side. Both sides are the same. The only thing that may be different on the inboard is the bearing, but the seal and everything else will be the same. So this can all be purchased through R.L. Detman. If you don't use all these parts, any of the ones that you don't use can be returned. And I want to thank you for taking the time to watch the video and doing business with the R.L. Detman.